Okay, I think I fixed the technical difficulty. Long story short, mic wasn't plugged in properly, so we're going to try this again. Not that I had any long monologue prepared, so I guess I can say it over again. It is February 2nd, or excuse me, February 24th, 2017, and I just got done listening to a bit of G-Man's Hangout, and I've kind of reached the conclusion that G-Man just doesn't give a shit at all whether what he says even remotely resembles the truth. He doesn't care. Um, he made an accusation that I have claimed that you could worship God or believe in God and still be an atheist. Now, clearly that's a contradiction. Atheism is the negation of theism. If you believe in God, you fall under the category of a theist. If you reject that, if you reject the proposition of God's existence, you fall under the category of an atheist. So an atheist is someone who doesn't believe in God. So it's a clear contradiction for somebody to say you can believe in God and still be an atheist. Now, Gman actually said that I have said this. So the question remains, where did I say this? What video? What hangout? What channel? What day? What time? And whom did I say it to? Because I would have never have said that it is possible to believe in a God and still be considered an atheist. That's absurd. It's obviously a direct contradiction. And of course, when I try to correct him on this, saying that I have never made such a claim, he blocks me from the live feed.
What's going on, Nelson?
Can you hear?
What's up, man?
Can you hear?
How are you feeling today?
Can you hear the moderator?
It's Friday and I'm kind of inebriated.
Oh, this is
Worst.
I've got some live stuff going on here. One sec here. Okay.
What are you drinking, Nelson?
I think are you listening to the video or me? Hey, let me mute you real quick, Nelson, because I don't know if that's on my end or your end. Oh, it's here on your end. Okay. So anyways, I want to ask anybody that has ever listened to any of my channel or any of my videos on my channel, have anybody ever heard me say that you could believe in God and still be called an atheist? Because obviously I think G-Man is blatantly lying about this. There has been a never instance where I would ever say such a thing. And what's worse is when I ask him for the evidence to support his claim, he blocks me from his live feed. Now, this is a continual thing with G-Man and True Empiricism because they recently have been on a campaign to throw accusations out there without a shred of evidence or any kind of support whatsoever. G-Man, a while back, this was some time ago, had supported True Empiricism on his position that he had not had sock accounts and that Suzuki Das had claimed that he had 16 sock accounts. And they asked him for evidence. Where are these sock accounts? What are their names? Where have I used them? And of course, Suzuki Das didn't have that readily available, although I think that he was right. And he retracted his claim. And I have asked the same thing from True Empiricism and G-Man. You claim I have sock accounts. Well, what are they besides doxastic dialectics? I barely watched any of G-Man's Hangout. I got there a little bit late. He was a Baiduology. I think that had pointed out that he was having a hangout and the doctor said something. But I listened in for a few minutes and it already had 50 plus thumbs down. Okay, well, obviously they weren't me because I wasn't even listening at the time. I don't have more than one sock account. But anyways, they are just throwing out these accusations. And of course, they don't care whether they're true or not. And I would love for anybody to show me where they're getting this bullshit from. And of course, confront them on it. Hey, G-Man, you have a lot of people that watched your stuff today, 40 people. I think most of them disagreed with you, but because you got 50 dislikes. But ask any of them, where did I say that you could believe in God and still be an atheist? And the burden is upon you now. You have made the claim. You don't need to ask me anything. You don't need to clarify my position. You need to find where I have stated in any way, shape, or form that if you believe in God, you can still be an atheist, because that is absolutely bullshittery absurd. If anybody else has claimed that, that's up to them to try to justify it. I don't recall Dragnot saying that. If he did, well, let Dragnot try to defend himself on it, or JD Kane. I don't know. I don't remember them actually saying this. But I do know for a fact that I have never said this. It's just something that would make no sense to me, because I know damn well that atheism is the negation of theism, and that you cannot believe in a God and still be considered an atheist, because that is a contradiction of the highest order. You cannot be an atheist and theist at the same time. They are mutually exclusive positions. Anyways, I do have the link to get in the live feed. Oh, excuse me. No, I can't put it in the live feed. I have it in the video description, and I have it on my G Plus channel if you want to come in and talk for a little while. If not, I'm not going to keep this open very long. I do have another video out. Hopefully, I got most of the technical stuff correct. I really didn't have anybody technically correct it because I think I knew it well enough to actually do it pretty much from the top of my head and just get the graphics and the voiceover. A few people have watched it. They liked it. I know it got a little technical. I understand that. The problem is that we're dealing with a technical subject, and I didn't want to water it down too much. I just wanted to compare what really happens in electron transport chain to what true empiricism claims happens in electron transport chain. Because when he explains it, it's a bunch of gibberish. It makes no sense. I had to parse through a lot of shit to just even get what I got out of him. And to make something into a 10-minute video. And I will have part 2. I was going to actually make one video that explained ETC and ATP synthase, but then I kind of figured ATP synthase is probably deserving of a video onto itself, a part 2, which I'll do next week. But it's a 10-minute long video. Go watch it before you even come in. Go watch it. It doesn't take very long. Let me know what you think. Again, I understand that it was technical, but the point was really to explain that when I explain something, even if it's technical, and how he explains something is completely freaking different. You know. So, anyways, who do we got in here? We've got Nelson. Nelson, what do you think of Gman's little hangout tonight? Because I thought it was pretty bad.
I think that Gman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I think that Gman has a long-standing problem with the difference between regular words and metaphors. Like he will equate NBA players to slavery, but he doesn't realize that's a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean they're actually owned. And it's the same thing with God. If I say I'm my own God, that's a metaphor. I'm not speaking exactly how that word is used.
That's a great point, actually. That's a really good point. Yeah, no, totally. Because it is a metaphor, and it's a figure of speech. When somebody says we're a slave to something, Floyd had pointed this out. Part of the conversation I did listen to, Floyd was saying, I'm a slave to my job. I'm a slave to have some kind of income. I'm a slave to my wife. I'm a slave that I have to breathe. I have a slave that I have to eat. Those are all metaphors. But it takes away from what we actually mean by slavery. And this is again the word games that they use, right? They just throw all these words and they equivocate everything together to have one weird argument rather than understand things like context. And you're right. When somebody says that a NBA player is a slave to the corporate NBA, what do they call it? The NBA league? Is it the league?
Yeah.
I don't follow basketball. But yeah, I mean they are to some degree, but they literally could break their contract if they wanted, face the consequences, but they're not slave as indentured servitudes or people that are literally property of somebody else. And that's what a key word is, property.
Exactly.
And even still, even with property, it's debatable because, like, for example, if you join the military, guess what? You're their property, but you're not a slave still. But that is a qualification to be a slave, is that you probably would have to be property, but that's not the only one. So in other words, all people that are property are not slaves, but all slaves have to be property. That's the way I'm looking at it. If somebody wants to suss that out more, that's perfectly fine. But yes, you are property in the military. But yeah, I like that example.
Yeah, and when if I'm my own final authority, I'm a god, probably in a metaphorical sense, but not in the sense where atheists are atheists. It's just he has a real big problem with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, he doesn't understand that when the question is asked, do you believe in God? They're talking about a non-naturalistic being, and if not, then he needs to have a distinction between what he means by a naturalistic God and a non-naturalistic. So what do we want to call somebody that believes in a naturalistic God? We got to call them a theist. Okay, what do we want to call somebody who doesn't believe in a non-naturalistic God? What does he want to give the name to? Nobody's ever asked him this, and I asked a few people to ask him, what do you want to call that person? Because that is what people in our community, they call atheism. If you want to call it something else, then let's use the word that you want to use. But what word are you using?
Right. Hey, Steve, I can actually make this a lot more interesting. I was actually true empiricism a few years ago.
You were using the same reasoning?
Yeah, I was an idea proponent.
Okay.
The Sandy Hook massacre pretty much was the last straw on the back for me in terms of believing in ID.
You mean the conspiratorial nature of things?
No, it was just the fact that children get riddled by bullets, and if God exists, why would he allow that?
Oh, the problem of evil kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I don't know how much that affects intelligent design. That's an argument against theism, but I don't know if you could legitimately use that against an argument against intelligent design.
Well, I ran about into this book that showed it's called Genes in Conflict, and it showed that sometimes our genes actually murder our offspring in the germline.
Well, murder is actually a legal term, by the way.
Yeah, I get that. In terms of a religious person, that's really affecting that our offspring could be murdered by our own genome.
Well, there's so many other things that are against intelligent design. Similar though, I mean, the whole process by which things are done in biology could be proved upon. I mean, yes, it's amazing, it's miraculous if you want to use that word. It doesn't imply a creator, but it doesn't mean that there had to be an intelligence because things could have been done better. Matter of fact, we can show that things are the way they are because we are repurposed, and things are repurposed for the fact that you cannot just create things ex nihilo. You have to work with what you've got. And so everything that we have biologically speaking is a changing of something else. It's a modification of existing homologies. So intelligent design doesn't seem to want to grasp that. They don't want to see that everything can have precursors. They think that a lot of the stuff magically disappears and doesn't have the prerequisite precursors, and therefore must be intelligently designed. And I advocately am against that. I think that's complete nonsense.
Did you know that there are two subunits to the ATP synthase that are nearly identical?
Well, there's a lot of subunits of the ATP synthase.
The alpha and beta.
Yeah, those are just those are pretty much the same thing, only different parts of the F1 catalytic converter or catalytic core. I'm sorry.
This that screams out gene duplication.
No, they're just why would it have scream of gene duplication? They're just proteins that are produced that have similar function. They're both part of that head that create ATP out of ATP by allowing a phosphate ion to come in. Right? I mean, if you look at the actual ATP synthase, there's a lot of subunits. You have the gamma shaft, which rotates. You have the C ring, or the C subunit, or subunit 9, as I think Drew likes to call it, or the proteolipid, which is his favorite thing to call it. And that's funny because that's exactly what he got confused with, that 16 kDa proteolipid, which is in the VATPases, not in the FTATPases. And that's where he keeps going back to Sam, because Scam didn't know which freaking ATPase he was talking about. So there are a lot of subunits in ATP synthase, which is funny because Ronnie loves to say, oh, Steve and them don't understand, they're subunits. We've never ever said there's not subunits, because that's absurd. But I'm not saying your argument, because A and B or alpha and beta are similar. I mean, that's what they're supposed to be similar. And by the way, welcome, CRISPR. Did you catch any of that, Gman? That was just pathetic. I mean, they're just so wrong on so many different levels. It's ridiculous. And they're so stupid to think that they actually have some kind of legit argument. That's what's funniest part. It's like making the worst possible argument, go, oh God, I'm smart because I'm making a major argumentative sense here. No, you're not. You're not at all, in fact.
Yeah, Steve, I define a dumbass as somebody whose YouTube username is Gman. And so definitionally, Gman is a dumbass.
Well, there's evidence Gman exists, and therefore he has a YouTube channel. Therefore, definitionally, he'd be a dumbass.
I think it's perfectly solid logic there.
Yeah, valid.
absolutely in line with what he was saying.
Well, they love to find the things into existence, right? And I don't know who any of these people are. By the way, you can't snipe us. So if you want to come in and talk, great. But if you want to come in and try to snipe, you have no luck because we are an unsnipeable hangout. So, Kennison, who are you? Kennison?
Hey everyone, my name
Okay.
is Kids.
Yeah. Bye bye. Okay. So, anyways, continue on. Go ahead, CRISPR.
No, I mean that's pretty much it. It's really weird because you think about it, and really what's being said here is, okay, if somebody comes to me and says, I believe that I'm a god, that's it, right?
Yeah,
you're not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to define you to be a god. Yeah, I think
sure.
maybe at best, I believe that you believe it.
Yeah, but that's not the same
You might
thing.
be a theist. Right. You might be a theist if you believe that you're a god, but I don't agree with you.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome and correct. If you believe that you're a god, CRISPR, then you might be a theist because you think that you are a god. I get that. But I don't think I'm a god. I don't think you're a god. Therefore, I do not fall under theism.
I believe
right.
that.
More importantly, if Gman thinks that all of these people are actually gods because they believe that they are,
He's a polytheist.
that makes him a theist.
Yeah, we've argued that as well.
Good for him, I guess. I don't
Well,
know.
no, that's fine, but he denies that. But it follows if I believe I'm my own god and I believe I'm a god, I'm a theist, then he has to be a polytheist because he's recognizing that I'm a god.
I believe that trees dance in the night. Are women that dance in the night with their lovers in the wind. You know, it's just metaphors.
Yeah. Well, they take things so hyper literally.
I mean, even if it's not a metaphor, that's fine for them, but I just don't agree.
Yeah, and it's just a definitional game. But again,
right, and
I want to know, he made a very specific claim, CRISPR, though. He actually said that I have said that you can believe in God and still be an atheist. We all know that's complete bullshit, that I've never said such a thing. So why is he outright lying and doesn't even care anymore? Him and True are really on this bandwagon of bullshit. They are promoting the biggest bullshit than they ever have, even in years past, and they don't even care anymore if it even remotely sounds something that is viably true. Because nobody would ever say, hey, Steve thinks you can be an atheist and, believe in a God and still be an atheist. I have so many videos out there explaining atheism that obviously that would not be a legit position for me to take. Because that's absurd. It's a contradiction.
Yeah, I mean, you can believe in the existence of entities that other people believe to be gods, right? If somebody believes that a tree is a god, right? You can believe that tree exists, but you don't believe it's a god.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but the problem is there. But
what's the problem?
Apparently, Gman can't wrap his mind around that possibility.
I don't understand why it's so complicated. If you want to worship something as a god, you want to worship the sun or a tree or a dog or whatever as a god, okay, fine. If you want to consider yourself a theist, I don't give a fuck. But I don't accept that the sun, the tree, the dog, you, myself are gods. Then obviously I do not fall in some kind of theistic category.
Yeah, I mean, one of the examples he gave was the Emperor of Japan, right? It was said that he was a god, and we'll just take it as a given that many of the people of Japan at the time believed that the emperor was a god, which is fine if they want to believe that, right? But they also believed that he had supernatural powers, right? That was the thing that made him a god.
Sure.
And they were wrong about the supernatural powers. Oh, that's it, right? Like they're wrong about their beliefs. So can we just move on now? I mean, what else is there to say?
Well, that's the thing, though, right? When the problem of evil comes up, and they say, "Well, we don't really know what the motivations of this God is. We just need to accept it." Would they really accept it if it was applied to a dictator? I don't think so. I think they would become atheists in a certain sense of the word if it was a human that said, you just need to accept my bullshit, you know. But because it's just an invisible entity.
Well, I made it clear I
Go
don't
ahead.
believe in G-Man's God, right? I mean, somebody had put in the live feed just a little while ago that G-Man basically said to the effect that his God is, all just, and he's going to send people burning in hell. What did he say? Let me see if I can actually do the exact quote here. My God is very generous, and you will burn for all eternity. Well, that's not my idea of a generous deity. I don't believe in that type of deity.
It was
So
hilarious. He actually said that exact thing. There's just like no comprehension.
he doesn't see the problem inherent in that statement, right? Yeah, I think these people are brainwashed to think that their God is some kind of benevolent being that does malevolent things, which makes no sense. Again, it's a contradiction. I don't believe in a God that wants to make you burn for eternity, because that's not what I would picture a benevolent God to be. Again, I don't have to accept that God exists or doesn't to formulate an opinion on what possible God can exist. And their God, to me, I'm not going to say outright is not possible, but sure the hell damn close.
Morally repulsive.
It is morally repulsive. And especially some of the things they say. I mean, they have to justify slavery. They have to justify infanticide. They have to justify a lot of things. When all they have to just say is, look, the people back then, they got shit wrong maybe what God wanted. They were just, backwards in their thinking. God really didn't really want any of this to happen, but he gave people free will. I'm a little bit more open to accept something along that line of reasoning, rather than justifying, oh, God likes slavery. God wants you to go around killing people. God wants you to commit genocide. God wants you to commit infanticide. I don't know if I'm down with that, right?
You don't know.
And what's worse is their gods are so mixed together. I mean, you have the young Earth creationist God, you have the intelligent design God, you've got the old Earth creationist God. Now, I'm not against the old Earth creation. Well, I guess the old Earth creation God still has a lot of problems. The theistic evolutionary God, I guess, probably the least problems with. But they all seem to like jump on this bandwagon that their God exists, but their gods are all different from each other, and they don't seem to recognize it. The God that created the earth in 7 days is not the God that created the earth in 4 billion years. Now, Jade might argue there's only one God. I get that. And that their interpretation is different. I get that. But their interpretation is what I'm talking about. The God that they're interpreting does not exist to me.
No, it doesn't.
So why did he say that I believe that if you believe in a God, you can still be an atheist? I just don't know where he pulled that out of his ass from.
That Danius debate, and he said, look at the dictionary, right? And he said, any God. So that means even metaphorical gods, which is stupid to me. It's stupid to include that as a type of God that is worshipped. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, when people talk about worshiping deities, I mean, sure, you could worship a non-natural deity, right? But then you have a problem with what are you just having a distinction with? What are you distinguishing between a deity that has some kind of supernatural powers, that is non-natural? What are you giving that empowerment to that deity? If I say, yes, the sun is a god, am I giving it any special attributes that it didn't have before? It still gives us warmth, right? It still gives us light. But am I giving it any attribute of any kind of even supernaturalism whatsoever? I mean, what am I doing to that sun that makes it into a god, besides the fact that I just worship it because it gives me light, it gives me heat, it makes plants for us and food. So if you want to call that a theist position, so be it. I don't. But I don't care that if you do, because that's not what I define theism as. But I don't think you can believe in a supernatural being, supernatural God, and be an atheist at all. And that's what we're talking about when it comes to atheism. Supernatural or non-naturalistic entities. That's what the whole proposition for 2,000 years has been. People have not sat around and said, hey, do we know or not know if there's if there's naturalistic gods? No. We know that people worship things as naturalistic deities. That has never been a point of contention in philosophy. So
Right.
why make that into an actual argument today if people have never
So,
really sat there and wondered if there's naturalistic deities?
so Gman says atheism is defined as the non-belief in God or gods, and he says or gods.
Mhm.
So that's his out, right? Or gods, and he will now freely define or gods as freaking anything.
Right, but now you're playing a definitional game, right?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no argument to be had there, and so it's so just childish of an argument. I think Keefe's did a wonderful job in pointing out the errors in G-Man's arguments. I think that most people in the community have recognized it, and G-Man doesn't have that much following of people that agree with him. There's a handful, and it's been the same people that have consistently been on the wrong side of all these arguments. Again, go watch my video about true empiricism saying that he's never been corrected on something science. I just picked something pretty much at random and showed within 10 minutes that he was completely corrected because he was completely wrong.
Steve,
Yes, my love.
the fundamental problem with G-Man's argument is that G-Man is making it.
No, because I mean I've heard other people make that argument before. I think maybe he might be the one that promoted the most, but it's not a new argument, I don't think. But they all pick up arguments from all these places, right? I mean, somebody had pointed me out to a new channel out there, at least new to me. It's very small. It's I don't remember the name. It's called Escaping Atheism, and he actually had a guy in that I've been corresponding with. His name's Chris. He has a channel named Missing the Mark, and he is a theist, and he's actually a practical theist. I actually like listening to him. He's actually makes some very good arguments, and I'm trying to get him to come on. But the other guy, the Escaping Atheism, oh my fucking God. Yeah, this guy doesn't have a fucking clue what atheism is about, and yet he's one saying, "Oh, atheists don't have a clue." No, it's comical because he is so strawmanning and so definitionally giving into argumentation of what he wants things to be by just redefining things rather than actually addressing the arguments or positions of an actual atheist. And that's dishonest. I mean, that's just totally dishonest to me. Speaking of actual atheists, we have one of the prime atheists on the community here. Atheist Ranger,
Yes.
you there?
Oh yes.
No,
I'm talking about you.
Oh, okay.
You-
Yes. Hello.
You know the interesting
I
thing
know if I had to
about
show you enough. I forgot that I wasn't in I'm in a hangout. I don't have to actually broadcast people. What's that, Nelson?
I'm sorry. Just a quick point. I remember when back in 1996 when Behe published his book Darwin's Black Box,
Mm-hmm.
and the first example in his book wasn't the eukaryotic wasn't the eubacterial flagellum. It was the eukaryotic flagellum. But the second example in his book was the eubacterial flagellum, which is a motor, a kind of a whip-like motor. And the weird thing about it was that as time went on, we found that deleting two of the proteins actually deleting one protein is still the function of the eubacterial flagellum was
Well, it has a different function. What we found was by removing some of the proteins, it still had another function it could do, and everything had a precursor. That's what the point was being. He wasn't aware that these things had proteins that existed prior to the bacterial flagellum, and we showed the precursors. That's the problem, because he wasn't aware of the documentation on it, the papers on it. They wheeled in a bunch of papers saying, "Hey, look, this is where this came from. This is where this protein came from. Nothing came ex nihilo."
Yeah, but the interesting thing there was,
The best.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that the best thing from that entire thing though was Ken Miller's example that I don't even think he brought he really pointed out in the trial, but he had it there, and that was the tie clip he wore, which was a mousetrap that he had removed several of the parts from.
Yeah.
Right,
I
still worked as a tie clip.
Still worked as a tie clip. Still had a function, right? This wasn't a function that it had before.
The interesting thing there was that the searing, where we first thought that only one part can be removed and it will still function. I'm sorry, that it will not function. We found out even further that if you remove the second part of that, it will not function. So, in other words, sometimes proteins, they can't function without excuse me. So sometimes you need 3 parts, sometimes you need just 2 parts. And if you remove that third part, so in other words, removing parts isn't actually proving your point. Sometimes you need to add it as well.
Well, the point being is that if you remove or change or existing structures, you may not have a protein that does its original function anymore. But also, by the same token, there have been proteins that have a high degree of conservation that have a lot of amino acid substitutions, like cytochrome C, that still function the same throughout all species, right? Cytochrome C still does things like for apoptosis. It still works in the electron transport chain. But it has, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, CRISPR, but it's almost a little over or a little bit less than half of the amino acid difference between us and things like wheat, but it still has the same function. So it's highly conserved. And intelligent design, to me, why would you need such a how can you have such a variation? What's that?
One of the really important things about that, though, is that not only is there a really high degree of substitution that increases the further away you get from
proportionally
in your comparison.
Proportionally so, right?
Right. You could have a much higher degree of substitution, right? And it could be a completely random amount of substitution between any two species, and the thing would still work, right? But you don't see that.
Because
right. So you would. Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say that there's a species of bacteria that you can actually see the freaking basal body of the flagellum all over its body. It's obviously a secretion system.
Hello.
It's a secretion system.
Hello.
Right?
What's going on, Nelson?
What's up, man?
Oops.
How are you feeling today?
Somebody watching the original feed, or is that me? Oh, go ahead. I think it was me. I was trying to watch the actual live feed.
In Abilitaria, I think is the name of the bacteria. Basically, it's a type 3 secretion system.
Yeah,
but
the problem is they I don't think he got that right. I think there's still evidence that the type 3 secretion system came after that particular bacterial flagellum.
I know that the type 3 specific secretion system is the derived system. I understand that.
Yeah.
However, if you remove the whip from the flagellum, it's just a secretion system, right? Or no?
Not necessarily, I don't think. But CRISPR, do you want to take that one?
It's not really my area.
Yeah, I don't think they're exactly like that. I think he was trying to make the case. I don't know if he fully did, but the concept I think is right, that he's trying to show that that things are built upon existing structures, right? You don't create something just out of nothing. So all these proteins that came together to form the bacterial flagellum came from other systems and came from somewhere else. We can actually find the gene. We know the genes that create the proteins for the bacterial flagellum. That's the key thing. That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree with that. That's the takeaway.
By the way, Christopher, did you watch my latest video yet? Because it does get, like I said, it does get a little technical. I couldn't avoid
You
it.
mean the one you just put online?
Yeah, it's only 10 minutes
No,
long.
I haven't watched it yet. No.
10 minutes, man. I just got the link for you. I'll put it in the internal. Like I said, I couldn't help for the fact that I had to keep it somewhat technical, only because, you know, you can only bring things down so much, right? But at least the technical aspect was a little more coherent, I think, than what true empiricism was rambling about. And plus, it actually showed the key point was the takeaway is that you remember way back when Rational Mind and myself pointed out that Ronnie kept on saying more than once that electrons were being taken from the oxygen. The oxygen was losing electrons, right? And we kept explaining to him that which would be called oxidation.
Yeah,
that's not what happens.
I do distinctly remember Ronnie screwing up oil rig.
Correct. And so that's what my video is about, pointing out, because he said in the Hangout the other day that he's never been corrected on science, but of course, Rational Mind and myself completely corrected him on this. Then followed, of course, by Fiona and Hogtie and you and a lot of other people. But, you know, he did not recognize that we were right. And then he finally got it right and then still didn't admit that we had corrected him on it, which was, I think, was kind of funny. So what I did was I kind of just explained the basics of ETC. I didn't get into technical as far as like the complex one and where the initial electron comes from. I didn't touch anything about the Krebs cycle or glycolysis. I just wanted to show what happens primarily in complex 4 to complex 5, and then I was going to do another one on ATP synthase itself, because I think that was deserving of another video. I was going to do it all at once, but I was like, yeah, this is too much at once, because this is a lot of technical shit, because most people probably are not going to know what the fuck the proteins are in ETC, right? If I said to the average person what is cytochrome C oxidase, they're not going to freaking know. That's why would they? But Ronnie makes it out to be, oh well, if you know what cytochrome C oxidase is, obviously you're a fucking biological guru. No, this is first year entry level shit that I took first year. So, I mean, what did you study ETC? When's the first time you heard about it besides high school, Christopher?
I mean, it was pretty ubiquitous, I think. I mean, they talk about it a lot. You know, molecular biology, biochemistry, a lot of different courses talk about it. So
when did you first hear about it? Was it even this decade?
Oh,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, I couldn't say. I don't remember specifically.
Yeah. Because he literally thinks that if you understand ETC, you're a PhD level, which is to me is comical, because literally that is so basic.
What is the problem here exactly?
Well, really the main problem was that he thinks that nobody's ever corrected him on anything, and that's complete bullshit. We correct him all the time. He's always wrong. I mean, one thing Ronnie can be counted on, the only thing we can actually count on him for is to be wrong consistently. And I just made a video pointing out one of his gaffes. Now, had he just said, I fucked up, I said the wrong thing, I would have been done with it, right? You know, we corrected him, and he's like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I made a mistake. That's what a normal person would have done, right? Because he even points in his video how basic this is, and that quote I didn't understand, and yet, ironically, it was him that didn't understand. And instead of just saying, yeah, I misspoke, but yeah, we're moving on. We didn't even brought it up again. But he said, no. And he started talking about, oxidative phosphorylation. He started talking about what actually becomes oxidized. And I'm like, dude, you're conflating all this different shit, right? When we're talking about you saying that electrons were being taken from the oxygen atom, we're calling that oxidation because that's what it's called. We're not talking about oxidative phosphorylation. And that's what he somehow brought it into, because he was trying to justify his statements rather than just admit that the oxygen doesn't take the electrons are not taken from the oxygen; they're donated to the electron. The electron receives the electron. That's called reduction. So that's what the takeaway was from my video.
I wonder how these guys know. Like, 3.8 billion years ago, we have chemical precipitates, right? Where we see these organic molecules or cells in these precipitates 3.8 billion years ago. That's how we know archaea was alive back then. What do they have in response to that?
Well, first of all, a lot of them they don't even understand or admit that we can go back 3.8 billion years or so, right? They don't want to admit that we actually have lines of phylogeny that go back that far to early what do they call it? Stratomylite? My goodness. What are those things called? The stratomylites? That's
Stromatolites.
Stromatolites. Thank you. The stromatolites are some of the earliest ones we've ever found, and they do go back 3.5+ billion years. They don't want to accept that because they don't accept deep time.
They're trapped in precipitates. What is their explanation for that?
That we're misreading the evidence, that they are only 7,000 years old like everything else. And not all of them. I mean, Gman doesn't think, he's even kind of weirder than a young earther. He doesn't think the earth is 7,000 or billions. He's somewhere in the middle. He's just like, oh, it's probably a couple 100,000 years old. Well, what fucking?
But he does think think that there are dogs. He does think that there are dogs that live for millions of years. So he is a little confused about various things.
He is a lot confused about various things.
Wait, he said dogs live for millions of years. Wait,
he didn't say that. But he got confused and he kept insinuating that dogs live millions of years rather than being corrected on it. When we told him that dogs don't live millions of years, he kept insisting that dogs.
He didn't realize what he said. Right. Basically, he phrased something really weirdly that implied that, and then he couldn't understand and he couldn't take the correction.
Right.
Thing for all these kind of people, once they get called out on something that is blatantly wrong, they just can't accept the fact that somebody would come along and said you're wrong.
You can't. They can't. They think that it somehow diminishes their position, right? And if I ever got corrected by Gman or True, which by the way I cannot think of a single instance that ever happened, I would be the first person to go, fuck, Ronnie was right. Yay, we have a winner. It's happened. I would be kind of happy about it. It'd be something new and different, right? I wouldn't be going, ah, shit, he's right. Let me find a way to fucking, tell people that I'm actually right and lie about it. Fuck no. Why would you bother? I'd be kind of happy if he actually corrected me on something. I'd be like, oh, yeah, you know what? Ronnie was right on something. It can happen. It shows that he actually can get something correct for a change.
Yeah, this is what I've also done as well. Like CRISPR just corrected me, like about, 3 days ago? 3 days ago on Dragnaut's homework. Because I actually...
I read that, yeah.
Yeah, I took the time to actually do Dragnaut's homework as a reaction to C. Brown not doing the homework. Yeah, and CRISPR certainly did put out, I think one of the questions I got wrong. And yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh crap. Yep, that's my bad.
That's one of the things. What you did is the kind of thing that people will do if they're only familiar with the stats, because they're not looking for oh yeah, wait a second. If they had that, so probably wouldn't have had kids. It's just you might miss that if you're not used to thinking about it in that context.
What happened in that problem? I didn't follow the whole problem, but correct me if I'm wrong. Was there some combination that just wasn't viable that you didn't take into account, Abaid?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yes, because I forgot. I just took that as a pure combination kind of problem rather than relating it back to the problem of Tay-Sachs, where if you actually come up with a DD recessive, so both little d recessive, that person will never get to sexual maturity and therefore can never pass on their genes.
It's a trick question in a way of some sort.
It is a trick question. So you had to eliminate that particular combination from the list of probabilities.
But see, something like that you catch, right? Something you go, you understand the concept, so you go, fuck, okay, I did the Punnett squares, I did all these different combinations. I didn't take into account one possible combination that isn't viable, that, as you said, wouldn't reach sexual maturity to reproduce. But I realize it now. Now, I don't think that somebody like C. Brown gets that, right? I don't think he for the life could have ever even solved that problem without a computer, without looking anything up. If you said, hey, can you show me even what a Punnett square does? If you just take a very simple one, right? Take 2 dominant A times 2 recessive A, you think he would have been able to do a binomial distribution to come up with the correct squares? I don't. I really don't.
He'd probably fuck up a Punnett square as well.
And
It's all
then you know
the
and here's the really terrible thing about it is, on the off chance that he managed to understand the really simple case of complete dominance and expressivity, right? He would then be convinced that that's the only way any gene could ever work, right? And so when you come into things that aren't completely dominant, which is most stuff, right? Most stuff is not completely dominant. He'd just be like, no, it can't be like that. And it has to be all of one or all of the other.
Yep, I see what you're saying. He like a lot of them take one little thing and they run with it. They think that that's the only way things can happen, or that's the only possibility. They don't know enough about the topic to understand things have exceptions. They don't understand the nuances. I mean, even in the conversation tonight, Chronic or whatever the fuck his name is, started bringing up the first law of thermodynamics, completely butchering it, completely not having an understanding of what it is, right? Because they never studied thermodynamics, right? They've never taken a course in thermodynamics. We have. They don't know the laws. They don't grasp them, when they should be used, when they're not supposed to be used, what they actually are. And that's the problem. They don't understand the nuances. And that's pretty basic, right? The laws of thermodynamics are pretty fucking basic.
The thing about that particular hangout was G consciousness and Gman, they had opposing positions on the definition of atheism. Well, at least, no, sorry, not atheism, but rather what Floyd was. Gman kept saying that Floyd considered himself to be his own god, and therefore Floyd is therefore a god somehow. And then G consciousness kept harping on and on about how Floyd was actually a slave. I don't know if you can actually consider that almost a diametrically opposing positions right there, but then Veckel came along and said that he's both a god and a slave at the same time. I just got really...
He's
Yeah,
a slave to his godness.
So
it was
slave
just
to his
you're a god
strange.
and a slave? Who are you a slave to? Because obviously that means somebody's have more empowerment than you have.
Okay, good. Okay, good. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Dee. I got it. No, and I understand. Maybe they're in their framework. Yeah, if they believe that everybody's a god, then I get it. I guess you would be subservient to some other deity. But again, in that particular case, if I'm my own god, then G-Man is his own god. Whether he recognizes it or not, he recognizes a higher god, that's fine. But if I am my own god, then he is his own god as well. He just has a higher god ahead of him. Because there's nothing. What makes a god? What makes me a god, right? And not G-Man a god? What is the distinction there? And you can't use some kind of moral argument because that's bullshit.
There's no distinction.
There is no distinction. You can't say, oh, well, morality stems from this, because that's not what theology deals with as far as the existence of a god. God does not matter about morality. And if you're an atheist, you can believe in God for whatever reason you want. You don't have to even touch on the concept of metaethics or morality. You can just say, I believe in God. I believe in a being that's supernatural, that created me and created the universe. That doesn't touch on what you believe morality-wise. So it's a really fucking strange argument to sit there and say, well, you believe your own final authority. Well, so what? That's not what the definition of a deity is.
Okay, good. Now, can you explain to me anything that you know such that you could be wrong?
Are we going down this pre-sub road now?
I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I don't think I can actually go on this pre-sub route right now because I'm actually still suffering from a bit of a hangover.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
So I still want people, the next time they talk to G-Man, because again, he blocked me from his live feed, which is weird because, I don't have him blocked. He can come in my live feed anytime he fucking wants. But the reason being is if I talk about somebody, they can defend themselves, right? They can come in here and defend themselves except for G-Man because it was Bullhorn, but anybody else can. I don't block anybody from coming in here. Nobody's been blocked from coming in here. And if they have been, there's been reasons. And very specific reasons, like false flagging my channel. But for the most part, there's really nobody that's blocked, and people we talk about are welcome to come in.
Come on, Steve. He's got me blocked from his live chat.
Does he?
So I mean, yeah,
really?
he does. That's did you not notice?
No.
It was I was in there as CPF1.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that.
Because I've got a deep reservoir of possible alts. So I mean, it's just yeah, he's got
Why you under that alt
so.
name?
Yeah, well, you're my alt too, right? Everybody's my alt. Bates my alt. CRISPR's my alt.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you speak with an Australian accent?
Yeah. Thaddeus is my alt. This is my other alt that came in.
I'm actually Steve, and I'm just really good at voices.
And actually, Thaddeus is really me.
So that's the person right there. That person. He's the Steve.
He's the prime mover.
Yes, he is it. Found it.
Wouldn't that just mean that Steve is a god now?
I'm my own deity.
Yeah.
Are you your own final authority?
Only to the ladies.
Yeah. Hell yeah. This is more like Steve's precept argument right here.
Your own.
I'm the only mind. I'm the only mind that matters.
Well, actually,
I think we've just found the inner solipsism of solipsism.
I have the inner solipsism that I am the only mind that matters. Mostly, I'm the first mind that matters, because without my mind, I can't do anything else, right? Even how much I love my daughter and everybody else, if I don't have my own mind, I can't even reason anything about them. So it has to be the first thing.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, good.
You mentioned the uniformity of nature, Nelson. I swear to God, I'm going to kick you.
Who's this Nelson dude?
He's relatively new. He was listening to Gman's debate, I guess, with Floyd, which I wouldn't even call it a debate.
He had a debate with Floyd?
It was mostly just
kind of
educating him.
It's more an informal thing, but like there was a section where Gman, you know Gman, he just shouts his mouth hole.
I had a debate with him yesterday and hope I know Gman.
Oh dear God. Yeah, I saw that one. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, he did good. Thaddeus did well.
Yeah, Christian anarchist says nobody actually won because he felt like I did. I could have, but okay.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Sorry. Go ahead.
You can't, if you're talking to somebody who likes to play with definitions, you cannot let them have their definition. Because it's like if somebody's going to build a reasonable argument and they want to take some specific and reasonable,
if they want to use God in such a broad generalized,
right? So if he wants to use a weird definition of God, but it's a specific one and it's something that's not completely unreasonable, then that's one thing. But when he's defining it to mean absolutely anything he wants it to be at that given point in time, you can't let him have it, because it's just.
What was I supposed to do then?
Well, you don't
let him have it.
Yeah,
Then you argue about whether or not that's a valid definition.
I reject your definition because that's the definition that most people use. I would use if you say, listen, use a valid definition. I'm going to go to Stanford's Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
We know Gman, he just comes and ignores the definition that you're going to give, and he just substitutes his own bullshit.
Gman doesn't understand the difference between a usage of the word and a freaking metaphor of the word.
And Nelson, you could have just stopped that sentence at Gman doesn't understand.
Period. Yeah, but I mean, again, I don't even talk about Gman that much, but I don't like it when people say things that I didn't say, especially when they don't have evidence for it. And of course, I will call them out on it. So everybody who's listening, whoever watches this video, call Gman out on it. Hey, Gman, you claimed that Steve said that you can be an atheist and still believe in a God. I want to know where this happened at.
Claim that Steve said. You weren't even part of the thing.
He claimed, he said specifically
he
tonight.
mentioned my name or whatever.
No,
and
he
sure,
said Steve.
Didn't have context.
He said me. He said Steve says that you can believe in a God and still be an atheist, which is categorically something I would deny, because that makes no sense.
Yeah, that's the main thing is we just don't find it effective that you want to label God as something that is ordinary, like my cup is a God. That doesn't make sense. That's not an effective definition. So if he wants to define it that way, if he wants to define it that way, leave him to his own delusions. There's nothing to be gained from having a debate. All he's going to be doing is substituting meanings.
Right. if I want to say, but if I say, look, I want to discuss whether if I use the term atheist, if somebody who denies the existence of a supernatural deity or non-naturalistic, that is a lot more informative, right? That's something we can actually have a discussion on. Because again, he doesn't want to give a word what that we would call that. I call that atheism. You want to call it something else? Pick a term. I'll accept that. If you just want to call it XYZ, an XYZ person is a person who doesn't accept a supernatural being or a non-naturalistic deity, then fine, we'll use the word or the phrase XYZ. But I just find it easier to call it atheist because that's what atheism means.
So, Steve, where do you think we go from here?
Well, I mean, they're just going to ignore my request for evidence. That's the first thing they do. They're just going to continue to make accusations, completely say things that are incorrect. I mean, again, they're both on the bullshit bandwagon to say things that we completely know are not true. Ronnie himself has been an overload saying things that are completely not true. Every video he has is just a plethora of mistakes and misinformation. And I don't care about that. I actually don't mind when he makes these videos because, again, it gives me something that I can make videos to show why he's completely wrong, as I did with this last video, which I put in the live feed, by the way. Save it for later. It's 10 minutes long, so after this hangout's over, which is not going to be much longer, watch my video. Again, I think I'm pretty damn sure it's technically correct. I took a lot of pains and efforts to make sure that I put in the correct information. I wanted to keep it interesting, but at the same time informative. So even if you don't have any experience with ETC, you at least come away going, okay, I kind of get the gist. It's not to educate you in what it actually does. There's a lot more technical involvement in the actual enzymes and the complexes I could have gone into, but I didn't want to because I thought that would kind of be distracting from the overview. I mean, seriously, like, let me ask Chris, but do you think really somebody has to really know the details of the cores inside there and how this stuff actually works? Or if I just say, look, the ETC provides a differential gradient of protons or hydrogen ions that provides a motive force to ATP synthase. That's pretty basic, right? I mean, I don't think you could really water that down any greater than that.
It really, I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. But I mean, if the point of this video was to talk about, him screwing up what oxidation is. So, I mean,
and that's the other point, right? Yeah. So
just redox, redox reactions.
Let's just get to the relevant.
Yeah,
let's just get to the relevant reaction as quickly as possible, and then we can talk about that. So
yeah, you remember that whole fiasco quite well, don't you?
That redox reaction.
Is it happening now? Is it happening right now?
No, this was a while ago when, again, Trim Pearson made a mistake in what he said. And again, I don't know if it was something he misspoke or he actually believed at the time. I tend to believe he actually believed it because when he was corrected on it, he loves that word, or that phrase, double down. He doesn't know what it means. But he did double down in his position. And he actually reiterated, no, electrons are taken from the oxygen. He actually said that on more than one occasion. And we're like, no. You don't oxidize the oxygen.
I think he just gets confused. It is a common error when you first learn it, that when you see the word reduction, you feel as if it's giving away something.
I get that. But that's when you corrected it. Like, for example, if I would have made a mistake and I would have said something similar, although I know an oil rig or Leo Gers, the high school stuff. But if I would have made a mistake like that, you or Chris would have said, no, Steve, you mean that's oxidation, not reduction, or vice versa. But no, I got fuck, you're right. That's it. Done after that point, right? It happens. But no, he literally went on for several days going, no, Steve's wrong. Rational mind's wrong. All these guys are wrong. I'm right. That electrons are being removed from the oxygen. And we're like, oh, God, seriously. And it wasn't until several days later when the penny dropped, because he actually went to go read something, and he started reading it aloud in his hangout, where it said that we're right. And he's like, fuck, kind of thing. And he just kind of changed his tune after that. That's what he does. That's what he did with this whole DNA and water thing. Oh, well, I've been saying all along that DNA and degrade, or to me, dissolve and degrade are two different things. Oh, the fuck you have. Come on.
CRISPR's actually linked. CRISPR's linked quite a good YouTube video showing what oxygen being oxidized looks like, and it's kind of what I expected. It's a blow up. It's an explosion.
Good old chlorine trifluoride.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had to be it had to have something with fluorine in it, right? Because fluorine is like the only thing that's more electronegative than oxygen. That'd be a very, very explosive reaction of some kind.
Very violent.
Yeah.
Very violent.
It's kind of like when fluoride is is it's so reactive. It's hypergolic with things like, I don't know, sand and concrete.
Well, can you imagine though if you had that going on in your cells? If you had that kind of reaction going on in your cells?
I can't imagine it because you'd be dead.
Yes, what you'll have is a DNA degrading. That's what.
Well, this is another thing. I mean, Ronnie doesn't get a lot of things he promotes.
That would degrade DNA.
If these guys were right in anything they said, life would cease to exist as we know it. That's the problem. That's why they're so out of touch with reality. Because if anything they say were right, we couldn't even have reality. We couldn't have physics. We couldn't have life. We couldn't have atoms, for God's sake. Because, I mean, I love when they start getting into like the whole speed of light thing and they don't realize you start messing with the speed of light, you're messing with all the other fundamental constants, including the Coulomb barrier, and you don't form atoms. They don't care. They don't. They're like, well, whatever. Big deal. Yeah, we're right. Our theory is right because. What's that?
These pal talkers. These pal talkers.
I like the pal talkers.
Just ignore them. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, pal talkers are okay. I mean, I don't really like hang out with them at all. I did have issues with them, initially because I thought they kind of dominated everything. But I mean, they know their shit. Like, you can't get away from that. So
yeah, they know their shit.
Yeah, they know their shit. They're black belts in philosophy. But anyways, I don't want to keep this thing out. It's hanging too much longer. My voice is getting shot. I'm doing the Ronnie thing. Peace. Let me explain to you the detail. Electron transport, oxygen molecule. So,
oh boy.
But I am trying to have more hangouts. I am trying to put more videos out. People have been becoming Patreons, and I need to get something back to them, obviously. So it is contributing to my channel, Patreonage. So I just got a laptop from Jake Herder. And I reimbursed him the shipping for it because I think that was only fair. I didn't realize it had a cracked screen, right? He even told me this before it had a cracked screen. I didn't have to use an external monitor. He told me this, and I didn't realize it. I totally spaced off. So I get it out, and I'm all like, oh yeah, I got a cool laptop I can at least use with a broken screen. And I'm like, oh fuck, and I felt bad. I was like, Jake, I'm sorry, man. I feel bad because you shipped this thing and the screen's broken on it. And he's like, no, I told you the screen's broken. You have to use an external monitor. I'm like, oh shit, I'm an idiot. Which is right, and I do have an external monitor. I just got to get it, and I will be using it for that. And then I have this other laptop that somebody locally here has donated that I might be able to use too. I still need a desktop though. Oh my god!
Steve, have you ever looked at the refurb deals on Newegg? Because they have a lot of really actually quite good deals on refurbished PCs.
Point me in the direction. Like I said,
Sure.
My Patreon right now goes to my existence, but I am getting a little bit extra that I could use.
I don't know how much
for maybe buying a computer.
I don't know how much your budget would be, but I mean, if you can hit maybe
not a lot. Let me tell you.
Well, like the cheapest is usually about 75 or so, but if you can bump it up to about, maybe at least a couple hundred, that even
for a desktop,
300. Yeah, and you can get a decent machine.
300 might be a little bit high, but I'll look into it. Because again, I mean, I like to keep. I gotta survive, but I do eventually at some time like to get a better desktop because this is an AMD and it's not horrible. Don't get me wrong, but
how old is it?
Oh, at least a decade probably, I guess.
Well, Steve.
Actually, I mean, to be fair though, my PC is actually running on a what is it? It's a X2 Phenom 9950 or something,
Phenoms are a good
core. Which is like 2008, I think.
Phenoms were a good core.
That came out. But then again, I've got 16 gigs of memory and a R9 390.
Yeah.
I
have 4. I'm doing 4 gigs of RAM trying to do video editing, and it's funny. Even in my video editor, which I'm using basic software, it doesn't even render in the video editor itself. So I don't even know what I'm looking at half the time. Some of these pictures are not very clear until I actually make the video, and then I have to go through and go, okay, did this line up the way I wanted to line up?
It's amazing. It's amazing how little processing power actually counts for anymore. Right? If you've got
the GPU is more important to me.
Yeah, I mean it matters for some things, no question about that. But a lot of things, it's like, do you have the RAM?
It's GPU and RAM.
You have a decent video card.
Yep.
If you do,
yep. GPU is where it's at. Matter of fact, a lot of times the GPU can actually take on functions of the CPU.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, so the GPUs are very powerful.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is, you get one of these refurbished PCs, and then a little while later you can just because it's not going to come with a video card, right? But you can buy one. It'll have a slot that you can have a decent PCI. Most of these will have a 16x PCIe.
You know what sucks is I had my roommate has give me a real good video card, but I can't get it to work in the system. It just didn't work. That's why he probably gave it to me. Obviously, he said he couldn't get to work either. But it was a really, really nice card, like a $300 video card. And I don't know what's wrong with it. It spins, but it just doesn't put any video out, which sucks because it's one of those big, massive ones. I don't remember the name of GeForce, like 2000 something or other.
Like the one that I've got. I mean,
it's massive. The thing's like the size of like bigger than a hard drive, right?
All right, guys. Yeah, I'm actually dropping out now. now.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
All right, catch you guys later.
The one that I've got, it would not fit in a normal sized case.
Yeah, I know which ones you're talking about. They're very, very large.
Yeah, I think it's like 10 inches or something like that.
Yeah.
And people who just got onto the video just have no idea what we're talking about.
It's very, very large. I don't know what the power was. Paranor asked what my wattage is. I don't know. I actually have another power supply. I've got a 550 that if I ever need a backup that I got for a motherboard that didn't work. But again, this isn't my system. This is somebody else who's loaned me this system, and of course, I've taken over all the space on there, which, but I don't know. I'll have to maybe one of these days, once I get more videos going, and once people think that I'm making better videos, maybe. And my Patreon goes up, then I can use that to, actually get one of those refurbished systems. Because right now I'm just barely on that breakout point where I'm surviving. But
it's really hard.
I need to give them a product, right? I need to give them videos. I need to give them hangouts. I need to give them guests. Jennifer Peoples, by the way, is going to be our next guest probably beginning of next month. So if you know Jen Peoples from the Atheist Experience, she's agreed to come on. And I'm still trying to get in touch with maybe. We've been in touch with him. I haven't really talked to him, but somebody's trying to get Stephen Amell from the Green Arrow to come in, which would be cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we are putting a lot of feelers out there. I've messaged Ken Miller, and I do have a couple other local people that are on YouTube.
Matt Dillahunty.
No, but if I get the steps are Jen Peoples, then I want to get Tracy Harris. Then I'll go for like Matt Dillahunty. Matt Dillahunty has been on my page before. He actually left a comment on one of my videos.
Oh,
and he owes me $20.
Steve, there you go. Get the 2 links there. Those should help you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to store them right now. So one sec. Open new link, and I will Newegg. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Okay. You'll unfortunately have to pay tax, which I don't have to, but you will.
Oh yeah. Well, whatever. Yeah, I'll look at it. I'll keep it in mind. I just ordered a new power supply for this other little laptop that I had, but I don't know. We'll figure it out. But anyways, hey, claim your inheritance. Nice of you to drop by. Except that you need to apologize. By the way, this is a hangout that is unsnipeable. But since this is a new year and I haven't seen you since, I actually decided I will give amnesty for everybody except for Brojo. But if you actually apologize for sniping my hangout, you're more than welcome to come back into my hangouts. Is that fair?
Which Brojo's this? There's like 2 of them. Go by that nickname.
Brojo as in
Saved by Grace.
Saved by Grace or Josiah McLean.
Oh, that dude.
Yeah, and even him, I might be able to. I mean, I told him it would be banned for at least a year, and it's been a year. So I might be able to forgive him now because I told him he does have a year banned. But we'll go from there. But hey, Climb Your Inheritance, you there? Well, he's not even there.
Maybe just like, oh, he's gone.
Well, his mic may not have been working or something. Who knows? Don't want to. But anyways, I'm putting again my Patreon in the live chat. There's been people that actually have bumped it up a little bit because they like my content more, and I'm hoping that's kind of how it works. As my content goes up and my quality goes up, as far as the videos, the educational things, the guest, then of course the Patreon goes up as well, and including new people coming into the community because we're getting a lot of new people coming in.
Yes, keep
what
inviting people like Ken Miller and
Yeah, that's
really
a hard one. Like I said, we have somebody in the community been in touch with him. He hasn't gotten back to me yet, but again, it's situational because you never know whether they're checking their email. You never know if they, they get a lot of fucking mail, right? I mean, even Mary Schweitzer doesn't check her messages that often. I just happened to catch her at a lucky time, and we were corresponding for several months to make this happen. So, hey, Bob.
Hey, but there are people like that are authors of Panda's Thumb, for example.
Yeah, I've reached out to some of them. I reached out to Todd Wood and some other people.
Todd Wood.
Yeah, he wasn't from Panda's Thumb, but he is a biologist that is a young Earth creationist that accepts evolution, which I think is kind of where he doesn't accept evolution. He accepts that there's evidence for evolution, which is kind of weird. He's acknowledging there's an overwhelming evidence for evolution, but his position is, well, I just have to rely on God that the Earth is young, even though all the evidence points contrary. Weird position to take, but at least he's honest about it by saying that there is evidence, or overwhelming evidence, right? He'd be the first one to admit there's no evidence for a young Earth, but he believes it anyways because that's the only evidence he has is the biblical source.
I'm actually sort of okay with that.
It's a lesser position. It's a lesser of two evils. I'd rather have somebody do that. I'm not okay with it because I think it's a weird way to think, but it's a lot more intellectually honest than the other one.
As long as they admit it, I mean, right?
Yeah, I get that.
It's fine.
It's not. It's a better position to take, but still, it's a weird mindset to say, okay, let's look at all this evidence and go, okay, I'm going to believe this rather than that. But at least they are honest, and I respect them for that. But he did not want to defend Tompkins' work, by the way. I had asked him, do you want to defend Tompkins' work? And he said, no, I don't agree with Tompkins' work. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it would be pretty difficult for anybody to want to defend Tompkins' work because it's really bad.
Speaking of which, by the way, we have a scheduling problem. We were going to do that hangout tomorrow on Tompkins' paper, right, Christopher?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
unfortunately, Floyd and General needed to postpone their debate until tomorrow. So we can either do one or two things. We can either have it before theirs, or we can have it on Sunday. And I'd rather have it on Sunday because I think that's going to be too much in one day. So if you're available Sunday, can we get Rational Mind and Uology and a few other people? Maybe later in the evening, I'll look to see what's good time for your Bade, and then kind of, and Rational Mind especially because he's actually done the analysis on it, and go over that paper on Saturday, or excuse me, Sunday.
I think so. It depends on what time.
All right. What time do you think works for you?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of difficult to predict on weekends. So
I can read the paper and respond.
Yeah, I'll try to be available. Try to get as many people in as you can though, and then I'll do my best to be there.
All right. Let me ask Rational Mind because of course he's been through it. The paper we're talking about is not, if you want. And again, I'm using the term paper very loosely. It's on AIG.
It's a blog post, Steve.
It's a blog.
It's the right term.
Yeah, it's a blog.
Blog post.
Yeah, it's a blog. It's not a paper. And he called it a peer review paper, which I criticized him for. I actually when I wrote back to him, I said, Dr. Tompkins, when you say peer review, do you mean a peer review paper?
Technically correct.
In a peer review journal? Or do you mean that just people that already agree with you reading your paper?
ICR doesn't have.
It's kind of like if True Empiricism had a blog post and he had Gman review it, it would be reviewed by True's peers, right?
Right, but that's not what we call
it.
But that's not what it means by peer review, right? That's a very inaccurate understanding of it. So, but that's what Sean used. Sean used the very same understanding, right? Oh well, I wrote papers in Nuke School and it was reviewed by my peers, which is bullshit. You didn't, but that's not peer review. Peer review is a process. It's a complete established process, not just somebody who's peer reviewing it.
Has too.
I'm sure it's supposed to be. It should be a pain in the ass.
I would hope it's not just someone just looking over it. I mean, otherwise, a lot of things could just get qualified. You get the right people.
They look over it and then they send it back to you and they complain about a bunch of stuff. And sometimes they're wrong about the thing they complained about.
Right.
And you have to very, very politely explain to them why they're wrong. because you can't just change it to the wrong thing because they told you to, but you also can't insult them for being wrong about it. And it's just a very delicate thing where it's like, yeah, but I think you may have possibly overlooked this other thing here where it's just
Yeah, but for intellectual people, right, who love science, and what you're taking away from them is the ability to cope with death, with the fact that they're gonna die.
Oh, that was the other thing that they brought up on that. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
What can you do about that?
Well, they said, somebody had mentioned, I think it was G consciousness, something. Well, wait, no, what? Well, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't that video. I'm not sorry. I think it was another video I was watching. It was actually Atheist Escapes that was saying it. Something along the lines of their argument is, well, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, you should be able to go do whatever you want. You have no ramifications for your actions. And I don't get that line of reasoning or not. Most atheists don't think that way because that would be stupid to think that way. We do have a societal thing that we have to go by. Even if we don't have an afterlife, we still have a life here, and we have to live by some kind of codification of a system of to have morals and ethics with each other and a relationship with each other, or else there would be anarchy, right?
At least whatever you can do to get away with.
Yeah, and just because somebody's an atheist doesn't mean they don't have a conscience, right? Matter of fact,
you can still
more
feel
so
bad about
sometimes. Yeah, you still have a conscience, and that doesn't mean a spiritual type thing. A conscience is just your ability to kind of know what you think is the difference between right and wrong and do the right thing and not be someone who's always in it for themselves and will have empathy, because empathy is not a word that these guys understand. As a matter of fact, G-Man butchered what empathy really meant one time. It was kind of ridiculous what his definitions of empathy means. But anyways, I do have to bring this to a close. It's already been an hour or two. So I put the link to my latest video out there in the live feed. Let me know what you guys think. Again, I understand it's a little bit technical, but I did the best to try to at least explain ETC in 10 minutes or less, right? And then I'll do one on ATP synthase later. So let me know what you think, CRISPR. After you watch it, please leave a comment. Be brutal. I don't care. But I'm going to end this hangout now. Again, G-Man gave a claim tonight that I have said that you could be an atheist and still believe in a God. I have never said that. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, hey, get it right. If you're gonna make a straw man or whatever, misrepresent someone's argument, at least do it to me.
And I think it's worse than a straw man. I think it's an outright misrepresentation. He actually lied, because I have never said that you can believe in God and still be an atheist, because that to me is a contradiction.
I think you might have said that because I mentioned your name and the fact that some of your people helped me kind of prepare for the debate a little bit.
Yeah, by the way, thank you for the shout out on that. That was very nice of you.
Man, of course. I want more people. I want new blood. It gets kind of boring with the same old people.
And like I said, you did a wonderful job. I will tell you when I think you did, right? Because you've done other debates where I go, yeah, you could have done better, right? I mean, I don't coddle people. But I think you did exceptionally well on this one. I think you hit all the points. I think you shut his argument down. You brought up all the relative stuff. So, yeah, you did really, really well.
Yay.
Okay. But anyways, good night, everybody. Tyler, George, Crow Many Clouds, Paranerd, all you guys in the live feed, thank you for watching again. I do appreciate you guys' support. Watch my video, Tyler and George and Crow Many Clouds, and leave comments on them, what you think. If you want to tell me it was too technical, it could have dumbed it down more, great. If you want to say, hey, you know what, there's enough to explain to us why he's wrong, which was the whole point, that's good too. And I will bid you guys good night.